Hey there, PhD friends, and welcome to another video. In today's video, I'm chatting with Dr. Nicole Zamanzadeh, and she has a PhD in communications. So for all my non-STEM majors, yes, this video is for you. I've been telling you I'm bringing you some videos, so this is the start of that. She has a PhD in communications, and she is now a UX researcher at Meta. Yes, what was once called Facebook, that is now called Meta. That's where she works. And the way Nicole and I met was really interesting, and I think it bears mentioning because once again we met via LinkedIn, but she messaged me. This was sometime last year or so. She messaged me and said, hey, I'd love to chat with you. Here's $15. And she really sent me $15 via PayPal. And she's like, I just want to chat with you. I want to give you $15 for your time and for some coffee. And I was like, oh, nobody's ever done that. So let me chat with her. And we chatted and it was amazing. And so when I started this series here on the Bold PhD, she was one person that came to mind. I reached out to her. She said, yes, I'm so excited to bring you this interview today, especially for those of you that have been thinking about turning your skills into a career in user experience. I'm new to the field. I'm sure you are also curious as to what people in user experience do. So I promise this is going to be a jam-packed, juicy video. So to get something to drink, get some popcorn, get a pen. If you're going on a walk, take us with you. This is listenable, and just let's enjoy the episode together. Just as a reminder, yes, the course on building a personal brand on LinkedIn is coming right up. If you're not already signed up to my email list, make sure to do so. I'm leaving the link in the description below. When you sign up for that, I give you 3 tweaks you can use on LinkedIn to spruce up your LinkedIn profile. I know you'll enjoy it. All right, let's get right into the video. All right, so I'm really excited to have Nicole Zamanzadeh on today, and she's a UX researcher. And the way that we connected was I would say roughly a year ago. Yeah. Nicole reached out. Yeah, she reached out to me and said, hey, can I get on a coffee chat with you? And we did. And I remember she actually sent me $15 via PayPal just to chat with me. And I was so intrigued because most of the time, I'm not saying anybody should send me money, but most of the time when people want to talk to me, they just want to talk for free. And definitely I've done some of that. These days, my schedule has definitely gotten busier. So I'm unfortunately unable to do that as much. But yeah, we got to chatting and I got to find out that she had just gotten a role at Meta, at Facebook at the time, but what is now Meta. And when I was putting together this series of PhDs for this career series, I thought about her. So I reached out and she was kind enough to come. So thank you for coming, Nicole. So the first question that we always ask is, what is your educational background?
All right. I got my PhD in communication. I actually studied communication also in college. And in my PhD program, I actually fell in love with the concept of measurement. So I specialized in quantitative methodologies and measurement, focusing largely on like the philosophy of measurement and how we quantify things in our world that are subjective.
Cool. So thanks for that background. So then you moved from that, you went from your PhD, yep. There was no in-between step and you went right into, and where did you go to school? Where did you attend?
So I went to UCSB, go Gauchos, for grad school. I went there because they had a really strong media program, and I was really, forgot to say this, part of my background was I dreamed, like at 16, I decided, I think I told you this when we first met, I wanted to be a professor. And I was like, I'm going to mold young minds. I'm going to change the world, the edge of what we know. I have to be a professor. It's what I want. And so I found a couple of professors there that I thought kind of embodied what I envisioned that might be like. And so I went there, and yeah, I focused largely, I forgot to mention this, on technology and stress, particularly as we develop. I focused even more narrowly because you know how this works. Like you're like in your degree, you get so narrow. I focused on media multitasking, which is just how we split our attention between different devices and our day-to-day tasks. A little bit more on my background, and I have to say, Gertrude, like you were someone that inspired me as I was getting into industry, as this ability to hold on to that dream. Like I could still be speaking to and involved in that world, that place of knowledge, but perhaps from a different, perhaps not from being in academia or being in an institution, or perhaps in some ways still playing within it, even though I'm in industry. So I enjoyed kind of learning more about how you do that. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that I could inspire you in that way, to be honest. Every time somebody gives me that feedback, it really makes my heart sing, because that's what I've been sharing for a while. That, you know, if you're finding that, like you said, Nicole, you wanted to be a professor, but then you get there and you realize, well, maybe it's not as straightforward, or maybe the jobs are just not even there, anymore. And so, or the jobs are there, but it's highly competitive, and yet there are roles outside of academia that where you can still use your knowledge, where you can still, teach, and where, you can also get paid quite well. So my next question for you, I know that you now that you mentioned this, you wanted to be a professor. So UX was not on your mind at all. So how did you, maybe find out about user experience? How did you get into it? And what skills would you say have been most important? I know those are like three big questions, but let's start with, how did you find out about it?
Okay.
And what do you do in your role?
Okay. Yeah. I found out about it. So like you said, as I started to realize, I didn't really love the reward structure in academia, actually. I felt, I wasn't sure if I felt like I could innovate through these 30-page papers and peer review cycles that are slow. It didn't fit my personality. I didn't know if I could really build my confidence and feel like strong in that front. So I was excited to look into other ways to do research. And originally I kind of I heard about UX actually because some of the people who had left my program had found their way into it by accident, I'd say. The majority of them had started out either in marketing insights or consumer insights or data analyst roles. And so it wasn't very clear to me what that was. Honestly, I was just like, oh, user experience. It has the word researcher in it. That means they probably use some research skills. That's good. And my journey there, actually, you were saying, I went straight into industry, and I started off we'll call it marketing insights analyst. So it's a little bit of marketing insights, a little bit of data analysis. And I thought I loved, like I said, measurement and quantification and all that. And I found myself missing people, missing the actual engaging with people and learning more from them directly. I also missed the practice of being in kind of the squishy, fuzzy concept. So at that point in time, a friend of mine who had left the program with me, we graduated together, and she had gone into UX, said, this is the perfect field for you. What you do all day is figure out how to represent how people experience products, and then guide teams to make them better so that more people want to use their product. And so I'd say the skills that I needed were largely within academia. Whether you're teaching, I do a lot of share outs of my insights and my research all day long to influence people who build the product to make changes, to make decisions with my findings. I do a lot of project management, thinking about that. I still kind of do that similar, submit your study idea, then you might need to get it funded, then you might need to figure out where you're going to get resources, then you go ahead and you got to get it all to work out, get the logistics down. And of course, I think I still use a lot of my statistics, which is something I really love and enjoy. So yeah, I think that my day-to-day has a lot in common with what I used to do. And I'd say there's a lot of training in the in-between. I'd say teaching, working with working with undergrad students, mentoring them before, that's what they're looking for. I came in and they're like, yeah, we still want you to kind of give to our research community in these type companies. It's important that they build out other researchers, that it's not just me they rely on, right? So I still get to embody a lot of those kind of skills as well.
There are several things I love about what you shared. So thank you for sharing that. One of them is the fact that you mentioned that you still use the skills you were using in academia on a day-to-day basis, even in your role as a UX researcher. And I think that that is excellent for you to say, because sometimes people feel, well, if I leave academia, then maybe I'll never, ever get to use those skills ever again, which is not necessarily true. Because in my job, for instance, I'll take my job as an example. Every day I have to study a new concept and I have to be able to communicate that to an audience, right? And that's exactly what you do in academia. You study something, you try to problem solve, and you communicate it all the time, every day, right? The only thing that's different is the setting and maybe some of the expectations, right? And sometimes, let's not lie, the compensation. But
yes, absolutely.
Exactly. You know, but it's a different setting.
Yeah.
You're still using those same skills. So I want to, you know, if you're watching this, I want to encourage you that you may find shockingly that there's so many things you do now in academia that translate over, right? I loved that. And then I also enjoyed the fact that you talked about finding out about UX research from the alumni from your school. Because I think that a lot of the time when I do presentations sometimes on networking and building a personal brand, and the question people ask is, but how do I start networking? And one of the biggest things that I even used to leave this out until recently, and I'm like, how about the alumni from your school? How about people in your own cohort? How about people that, you know, maybe you don't know them, but maybe the school has alumni programs and some of them come back to speak or some of them come back to interact. I know we had a little bit of that at my university. So you start networking from your school. And so I love that you found out about this, a wealth of information about UX research from somebody who was in your program. That's fantastic. Then my next question is, what kind of skills? I think you touched on it briefly. You know, you're using project management, you're using your teaching skills, you're using your research skills for sure. But for somebody that wants to enter into UX research, right? Like these non-academic roles, they're not always the easiest to break into, because sometimes as academics, we're not really completely sure how to communicate or how to communicate how our skills transfer. So for somebody who wants to get into the type of role you are in, Nicole, how can they do that?
Oh, I love that. And then I have a couple of responses to the things you said, but I'd say the first is kind of learning a little bit about the jargon. I think, you know, what I've been telling people is the research methodology, it actually kind of stays the same. Like if you're using a survey analysis transfers, you experiment, okay, they might call that A/B testing, but actually you can kind of look up that one-to-one translation in some ways. To me, it feels like we're so good actually at learning jargon. We do that all day in our field. You get so specialized, right? It's really a skill you have. So clearly you could learn that translation of, okay, I'm really good at content analysis. Great. What is that? What do we use that in for products? How could it possibly play a role, or what's the terminology? There's actually quite a few resources that kind of have that. I wouldn't say it's like a translation directly, but it tells you what the list of methodologies are, and then it describes them. And so I did that, and I was like, oh yeah, oh, I've done that before. Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't have called it that, but I've done that before. So I'd say that was one of the main ways I kind of figured that out. And the other, which this is something I love telling people when I talk to them about switching out of academia. In academia, if you don't publish the paper, the study never happens. You got nothing to show. In industry, every bit of the way, every step of the thing that you did counts as, like, you get credit for it. You did the skill. So I find a lot of the time when I'm talking to people about their resume, and that's a really important part of that translation that I'm saying, go ahead, go and look at all those null findings. They actually all matter. They want to hear about your ability to set up that study, how you came to that question. Those are the important things. Or, hey, you decided not to do something. That's equally as important as doing something. And that's something that I think was freeing for me, because I know people, I had publications when I was leaving, but I didn't feel as strong saying, oh, I have this range of studies I've done from just my pub. So it was really useful to be able to go back and say, actually, here are all the different studies I was part of and all the different types of skills I learned along the way in terms of methodology or in terms of learning, how to make decisions or give recommendations. Those were key. So I got a little away from your original question, but I think it's certainly, there's some stuff on the internet and classes you can take, but I'd recommend people. So I want to double down on what you said. Reach out to alumni. People really want to help. Like, it's not an easy transition, and we all know that. So it feels good when we can pass on what we learned to other people. And I just want to mention that even though I said it's not an easy transition, it's like more psychologically not easy than it is anything else. Like the actual, once you're in, I feel like, oh, wait, what I did really applies here. I was told in academia, I am far, far away from this land called industry. I would also like to put out there that you might get surprised by how much applies. I was talking about my quantitative methodology approach or my measurement approach. It was just something that helped me in my grad school. It was a passion of mine. At the time, I mainly was working with people who were in education or in pharmacology. So they were not in my industry actually, or like even in my field. So I didn't really know if that would take me places. It's just what I love. And my current specific role in UX, so there's qualitative, there's quantitative UX researchers. I am a survey methodologist within the user experience kind of range of roles for researchers. And part of the reason I got hired is because I had that specialization and I was someone who doubled down in caring about measurement. And more than that, this is actually kind of a newer role. They've just started to feel they need this. So had I started to look 7 years ago at the beginning of my program, this role might not have existed. Mm-hmm. So I just want to give you hope that you might be doing things that the future will need, even if you're looking around and unclear if it's needed now.
Exactly. I love that. There are roles that have not been created yet. And companies like, big tech companies, like the ones where you work at, but even with smaller companies, yes, where, they may not be the blockbuster, quote unquote, blockbuster companies, but still they're making a great impact. And what you're learning now is going to be a fit. So I really enjoy that you shared that. And so you were a survey methodologist in your PhD, right? That's what most of your work was built on. Okay. So now this is helping with your current role, which 6 years ago did not exist. Isn't that amazing?
It's mind blowing to me. When I saw the role, I was like, wait. Yeah. I remember when I learned item response theories with like specific methodology, like, oh, I really like it. No one in my field uses it. I don't know if it'll ever be worthwhile. And then I saw it in the job description. I was like, am I dreaming? Like they want someone who knows how to do this?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it was really a nice thing to kind of go back to my little self. I like to say, like I visit my littler Nicole, who was in grad school. It was like, I'm sticking this out because I'm passionate and that's just what I want to do right now. Mm-hmm. And if it was uncertain, say like, I'm so glad you stuck to your passion. Like that's actually really valuable. And it shows. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to, emphasize that a lot of the time, because I come from a very, I think quantitative sort of PhD. We do a lot of quantitative work as biomedical scientists. And I know that people in the communications field, psychology field, sociology, the more social sciences, you guys tend to depend more on surveys, so survey methodology, even though I know some of you do definitely do the quantitative stuff or the qualitative stuff, but surveys are a very specific skill. And I wanted to highlight that because maybe people are listening and I've had people reach out to me because people always think because my background is in STEM that I only talk to STEM people, right? And I'm trying to shift that perception that, we're here talking about survey methodologies, which I know nothing about, right? But for you as a social scientist is so useful so useful that you can get hired into places, into tech companies, into places where they're really trying to focus on how well are people using, responding to our technology, to our app, to our product. How can we make that better? And that's exactly what Nicole has described for us. This is amazing. I also enjoy the fact that you said for people to be confident. So, I mentioned earlier on, I tried not to make this the focus of the interview because I really wanted to focus on UX and your skills, but we can't ignore the fact that you also work at Meta, right? And so a lot of people, it's like the big, it's like the FAANG companies, right? So you have Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, right? Like these are the 5 big ones that, seem to have arrived when you show up at these companies. I guess my question here is, what do you have to say to that? And for somebody that really wants to get into these companies, right? What advice can you give them? What encouragement can you give them? Because I know people do get down on themselves for not being there. I don't know why, but I think it's really important to some people. So I want you to speak to that.
Oh, I love that you asked this because the whole way through my interview process, I was like, this isn't going to work out, so I might as well just have fun. Like, there's no way I'll make it. It's fine. Like, I'm just I'm here to give it my shot. And so I actually really identify with this feeling of like, oh no, this would be really making it. And the best advice anyone gave me was, don't psych yourself out. Like, they're people. They're looking for people. And if you go in and you're going to just hold yourself as there to explore, they'll react to that. And so I want to say, I don't know if I would call it making it. And I would say, I think there is a lot of different ways to get there. There's many steps and ways to build up your confidence and or make sure you have some examples that make you feel concretely more ready to talk about products. I actually am working with friends who went and became assistant professors or associate professors, or even got tenure and are now at Facebook. So, or Meta. So there's many paths here is what I want to say. What I also want to say is reach out to your friends that work there. Don't be afraid. If you know someone, ask for help. At least that's where I am. It's like, I'd rather be working with people who I've connected to and people who reach out to me and are people that I can feel passion and connection with. So why wouldn't I try to help? And I do think recruiters are important. So kind of give any recruiter, get practice with speaking to recruiters, updating your LinkedIn, and ask friends to forward recruiters to you. That's actually what a friend did. I was not sure if I really wanted to move to UX, and she's like, this is perfect for you. I hear you, I understand, but I think you need to be in this field. And so she's like, a recruiter just talked to me. I told them to come talk to you. Why would you do that? She's like, they're going to come talk to you. She's like, all right. And so I would say that it's a bit of openness as well as moving along the way and always using your network. I know it's a hard one because when you're in that space of feeling unsure, it can feel really difficult to be like, why would my network help me? What should I ask for? But even informal interviews, I did a lot of those, just talking to people who had been in UX and asking them, okay, like, what did you think made your resume strong? How do you describe yourself? What do you think shows your passion? Those sorts of things also help. So it's just a smattering of things, but I think I can't help but feel it's also just a little bit of luck and timing. So hang in there to the people who are hoping to.
Yeah. I think that there is a small element of, well, maybe not small, but there is an element of luck in there sometimes. But everything you said though is really helpful. Because first of all, you talked about your network, right? Depending on your network and reaching out to people and not being afraid to say, hey, can you refer me to someone or refer me to a recruiter? Informational interviews are always great. When you mentioned informational interviews, I was wondering, did you ever do like you mentioned informal interviews with recruiters? Did you do like practice interviews with recruiters or anything like that?
I spoke to recruiters even when I was like, I don't know if this role is something I want. And that kind of, I bring that up mostly to say, that meant when I went into recruiting calls, I was a little bit less like, I need this better work out. Like that psyching myself out feeling was, I study stress. So it's like, it's learning the resources and the coping tools that help me stay calm and present. So I can actually, you know, present myself the way I want to. And so I did a little bit of that. And then the other side of what I was saying is a little bit of, I spoke to other people who've been through the interview process and said, okay, like, what's your advice? What do I need to know about working here? What are the values that drive what you think are the right candidates for people to be in this space? And that's actually where I got the advice to not psych myself out. And I'm pretty certain that that's what got me through. I had a migraine on the day of my actual like in-person interview, my virtual interview. And I remember she's like, don't psych yourself out. And I really didn't want to stop the interview. So I just kept going. But at the time, there was just a little bit of sunlight, kind of like now in my face. So I was actually kind of looking down during my interview and I was like, this is over. But there was a part of me that's like, well, I don't think they're going to get, I'm not a better candidate just because I can hold eye contact or not. So let me just keep trying to stay here and say what I have to say. And I can tell them I have a headache. I'm sorry, I'm not looking up. And I kind of got the feedback that, yeah, like I was still a good storyteller. Yes, did people feel aware that I was not my full self? Yes, but I was able to show up. So I feel like I always discount. It's like, it has to be my skills. It has to be blah, blah, blah. And it's like, sometimes it's actually just having that calm. And I don't know if I would have gotten there without my network kind of supporting me and thinking through how to not psych myself out, how to just best show up and share what I have to say and have fun with the process, which I know sounds crazy.
Yeah, no, but this is really helpful. I think everything you've said is so helpful for those people that really want to get into these companies, because I do understand that it's a dream for people, and you know, and you should honor your dreams. And I love that you've mentioned all the different, like you said, it's a smattering of stuff, but by putting together all those things, you can increase your chances, right? So networking, informal interviews, informational interviews with people in there, and just remembering that you deserve to be there. And, you know, I was telling this to somebody yesterday because I was chatting with her and she was saying, oh, I don't feel like this, you know, is important. She was talking about her research and she was saying that she didn't feel it was as important as maybe to present in a particular way. And I was just saying, everybody's work is important. The fact that you got into a PhD program and you're doing some research that is related. And I asked her, I remember asking her, so what is, she was looking at a protein and I said, what is this protein related to? What is it? What role does it play in humans? And she said, well, we think it's related to diabetes, breast cancer, and bone cancer. I'm like, well, those are three really important diseases. What are you talking about? It's not important, you know? So I think that sometimes we're such overachievers, right? That we begin to think that, oh, this is not important. Like survey methodology, who cares about that stuff? Or this, who cares about that stuff? But you will be shocked to know that there are whole industries that want your skills, that need your skills, and want you to be there. So thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing all of this. So we're coming towards the end of our conversation. This was such a great conversation, but if people, yeah, definitely. I wish we could continue, but then it would be an hour and nobody would watch this video.
For us,
yeah, it would be just for our own entertainment. But tell people where they can find you.
Yes. LinkedIn is a great way to reach out. I also, Twitter, email, Instagram, any of that works. I am someone, I actually really do love to follow up with people through LinkedIn. I actually just met a mentee that way who actually reached out to me from my undergrad alumni network. And send me a message. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to support, look over your resume. If you want to just talk about how to get over the imposter syndrome, that's all. I'm here for all of it.
They will. Trust me, I know that people will. They will. So I'll leave all of Nicole's contact info in the description. So make sure to check that out. Thanks so much for chatting with me, Nicole.
Thank you, Gertrude. Thanks for making this happen. I love the series.